how long, Yael, for how long that the international community will sit in quiet and say, okay, Israel, we understand your need to attack, before Merkel, Obama, and Cameron will phone up Netanyahu and say, listen, guys, that's enough.
And we're going straight to UK.
Yeah.
1 second, we're going to go straight to our i24 news correspondent in London, Jonathan Sacerdoti. Jonathan, of course, we're bringing up the international community. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu spoke to many world leaders yesterday, including the UK Prime Minister David Cameron, telling them Israel is under attack. Please come and support us. And as we heard, maybe as opposed to other operations, this is the time when Israel is having the most support from the international community.
Yesterday, David Cameron did speak to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and issued a statement saying that he gave him his support, saying that he strongly condemned what he called the appalling attacks being carried out by Hamas against Israeli civilians. And the Prime Minister reiterated the UK's staunch support for Israel in the face of such attacks and underlined Israel's right to defend itself from them. These things, of course, aren't a given, but we mustn't forget that usually with these sorts of statements comes a sort of foil whereby the UK government says that it also has a problem with the loss of human life on the other side. And yesterday, sure enough, William Hague also condemned the rocket attacks, but said he was deeply concerned by the escalation of violence in Israel and Gaza, and condemned the rocket attacks by the Palestinian militant groups on Israel and Israeli airstrikes on Gaza, taking more of a sort of balanced approach whereby he created some sort of moral equivalence between the two. So as ever, Britain's official approach is one where it does stand behind Israel, but it then often follows up with a sentence which frustrates some in Israel by showing what they see as a lack of understanding of the difference in the asymmetry of the situation, whereby hundreds of rockets being fired at Israel then causes Israel to retaliate and try to recreate a security situation which is more desirable for the country.
We've been speaking in the last half hour, of course, about the media war as well going on. As in addition to the rockets firing to and fro, there is a media war going on, and the headlines, of course, can be put as such to actually put a slant on what's going on. The British newspapers have been covering this since almost day one, have they not?
The British press, as always, takes an interest in what's going on in Israel. And it's been interesting, again, as you say, there's been a sense among some that there's been more of a favourable approach towards what's happening this time, more of a favourable approach towards Israel. But often I think that what seems to take place is that there's support in the early days, and then as more and more pictures come out of the war zone, then people's allegiances start to shake and start to shift somewhat. And again, this time that may be the case. However, interestingly, for once, the BBC, which has often been accused of running slightly manufactured Palestinian footage, maybe inadvertently, this time has started out its coverage in the early days with a special feature on whether some of the images seen on Twitter purporting to be from Gaza under siege or Gaza under attack, as the hashtag said, whether those images are actually fake. And they did some investigative work to show something which many in Israel had known for years, which is that journalists and activists on Twitter often retweet images which actually didn't come from Gaza at all, came from Iraq or from Syria. And when they did come from Gaza, they were often from past events in Gaza some years ago. And I think that that has, on one hand, made some in Israel feel comfort that the BBC is now showing that it's aware of this problem of fake imagery, sometimes colouring the public's view, but it has also angered others who feel that it's showing some sort of shift or bias towards Israel in the BBC's coverage.
i24 news correspondent there in London, Jonathan Sacerdoti, thank you for joining us this morning. Moav, I want to take this question back to you. The Prime Minister